Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Tardáguila, the Associate Director at the IFCN. And, well, you can put your sad face on because this is the last session of Global Fact 7, at least in the public track. Well, at this panel, we are going to talk about the fact-checking innovation initiative, and we are going to hear from fact-checking organizations that received grants from this amazing initiative at the beginning of this year. And our fact-checking friends will be interviewed by wonderful Michael Bolden, who is the program manager at the JSK in Stanford, who will be soon here. And we will also have the help of Orlando Watson from Facebook, who is my friend, and who will soon pop up here in the screen because he told me he has a good surprise for the fact-checking community. Right, Orlando? Is that true? Tell us about
That's
it.
Right, Chris. That's right, Chris, and thank
What's
you
up?
for allowing me to be here. My name is Orlando, and I work on Facebook's partnerships team. When we launched the Fact-Checking Innovation Initiative with IFCN in 2019, we set out to create an international fund that invested in fact-checking innovations and was made available to the international fact-checking community. Building on the experience from round one, we're excited to extend our partnership with IFCN on this initiative as part of our commitment to the future state of fact-checking by supporting the global development of new tools and technologies that combat misinformation. So today, we're pleased to announce that applications have officially opened for the Fact-Checking Innovation Initiative Round 2. Chris, back to you to share more about how everyone can apply.
Yoo-hoo! Celebrate community! We have Fact-Checking Innovation Initiative Round 2. And anyone can go right now online, take a look at the Pointer website. It's surely on the homepage, pointer.org. It will be soon, in some minutes, in IFCN's Twitter account, Facebook account, and our Instagram too. And just look out for these numbers, guys. We are offering now, with Facebook's support, $450,000 as an overall amount of money that we have for the community now. And applicants can request up to $100,000. Hey! Thank you, Facebook. Thank you, Orlando. And now we have to move on with the panel while we expect you all to join in. And be careful because the application they are up until July 24. So which means that we have less than 1 month to apply. So be fast and send your great ideas. Right, Orlando? Thank you, and stay around to watch the panel. All right?
That's right.
And now we're going to move on with Michael Bolden, the wonderful man behind JSK. Hey, Michael, welcome to the panel.
Thank you very much. What exciting news.
Yeah, let's go. So you're taking the stage from now on to interview the award winners, the grant winners from the Innovation Initiative #1. And please take the floor.
Absolutely. Thanks to the Fact-Checking Innovation Initiative, 7 fact-checking organizations are creating new formats and technologies that will benefit the journalistic search for the truth and communities around the world. Let's meet our winning projects and learn more about their work. First up is Liesl Pretorius. She is editor and senior researcher for InfoFinder, the winning project from Africa Check based in Johannesburg, South Africa. Africa Check is dedicated to helping sort fact from fiction on the continent. Welcome, Liesl.
Thanks so much, Michael.
Great. Let's hear about your project. We're excited to learn more.
So about a year ago, we took a step back and we asked ourselves if Africa Check's InfoFinder tool was solving a user problem, if it was solving the right problem, and if we were solving it in the right way. And a bit later, when I do my presentation, I will talk more about that. But for now, I think I'm just saying hello. Oh, there's a slide bar. So when we asked ourselves these three questions, at that stage, InfoFinder was a collection of facts in Q&A format, and it was also a help desk for journalists. But when InfoFinder started out, the prototype version, which was launched in 2016, was actually a collection of useful sources. So InfoFinder has gone through a couple of iterations over the years. The problem that Africa Check wanted to solve in 2016 was a lack of reliable data from the continent. And this is still what we're trying to do, but we're tackling it in a slightly different way. So let's go back to a year ago. We had a Q&A section and we had an expert model. And what that involved was that we wanted to publish facts that were verified, each of them by 3 experts. But what we found when we took a step back and we reviewed what we were doing was that this was a very onerous model and that there wasn't a clear payoff for the experts. And when we did user research, we found that the user didn't attach particular value to this extra layer of verification. And so we changed tack. We decided to partner with organizations on the continent that do fact-checking. Because we felt that we had a similar methodology, we already use experts as part of our methodology, and that this would be a good fit. We were right about this, and in the pilot phase, we're expanding our tool through partnerships with fellow fact-checkers Dubawa, ZimFact, and GhanaFact. And because of the support from them and from the grant, we have been able to add Ghana and Zimbabwe to the tool. The tool already covers Kenya, Nigeria, Senegal, and South Africa, and as I said now, also Ghana and Zimbabwe. Secondly, we have started the help desk for journalists. It's WhatsApp-based, and the idea there is that if we can give journalists better access to data, that the audiences will also have better access to data or access to better data. What have we learned through this project? The first lesson is to pivot until you solve a problem and until you solve a problem in the right way. As I said, when InfoFinder started, it was a collection of sources, and now it is facts in Q&A format and also a help desk for journalists. So it looks quite different, but all the changes came because we're trying to solve a user problem. The second lesson, I think we'll keep on learning. As I said, the help desk is quite new. And the question when you build a tool, especially for journalists, is if you build it, will they come? Will they use the tool that you have built? The worst case scenario we actually planned for is that we would be overwhelmed with questions or queries through the help desk. But there's also another possibility, and that is that we will have to market the tool quite aggressively to get journalists on board. And what we saw with COVID-19 is that there is a challenge in that, for example, in Kenya, journalists and the newsrooms are very stretched because they work in 2-week shifts. And because of that, it's hard to onboard an entire newsroom. But what we've done instead is we went to journalism organizations and we've onboarded the journalists one by one. So I'm very excited to learn more about how we can present this help desk in a way that solves a user problem. Thank you, Michael.
How exciting it is to learn more about InfoFinder. There are several things I'm curious about. I guess the first is, one of the key ways of navigating InfoFinder is through the key topics you all have chosen, which cover everything from agriculture to welfare and population. How do you decide what rises to the level of a Q topic, and how does that list grow to meet the needs of your users?
So, Michael, it's partly an editorial judgment. For example, it would be hard for me to imagine in South Africa not to have the categories crime and justice and land, because those are topics that are relevant for over a couple of years. And then we're also led by our readers. Our readers submit user questions, And what that, for example, told us was that they are very interested in service delivery. So we expanded our governance category to also include service delivery. And another example is the recent COVID-19 pandemic, where we had at least 122 viable questions, and we added a new category to deal with those needs.
Oh, that's exciting that you're able to sort of change that to in real time as it is. So,
Yeah, very, very pleasing to see.
Yeah. You mentioned that one of your project milestones was adding Ghana and Zimbabwe to the tool. Do you have an idea of what the next countries are going to be where InfoFinder sees a need to expand?
So there is a limited pool of countries that we can choose from because we need to work with countries where there are fact-checking organizations active. So that determines the pool. And then when we did our first round, we considered things such as the maturity of the organizations. We wanted to work with new and older organizations because we want there to be mutual skills transfer. So the other thing that we considered was that we had existing partnerships through the Africa Facts Network. And then another consideration might be we would like to have a geographical spread.
Great. But, keeping the answers and questions in InfoFinder updated seems like a daunting task, especially some of these things, the information is coming at you so quickly. How does your team meet the challenge of keeping everything updated?
So essentially, we're doing two things at once. We're doing maintenance of the tool, so we go back and make sure that the information we have is the latest available, the best available data. And then we are also, as I said, expanding the tool. So we have an editorial schedule for the normal maintenance stuff. And we go through category, country by country. We've done South Africa, Kenya, we're midway with Nigeria, and the next big one is Africa. And then we are led again by our readers in terms of priorities for answering user questions. And the last thing we consider is when a big data set is made available. For example, in Kenya, the census data recently came out, and then we will regularly add facts from the census.
Oh, this is awesome. Thanks so much. We'll have a chance for the audience to give you some questions, but thank you for sharing this great information with us to get us started.
Thanks, Michael.
Great. So next up, we're going to have Fabiola Torres Lopez. She's founder and director of Salud con Lupa in Peru, a website that delivers your daily dose of quality journalism. Its winning Lupa Colectiva project is the first public health checking project for Spanish speakers based on collaboration among journalists, health professionals, and citizen contributors. Welcome, Fabiola. How exciting to have you here.
Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to explain our project. I want to say that when we created the project, we didn't imagine that the coronavirus appeared in our lives. And that's an important opportunity to demonstrate that we need in Latin America a project like Lupa Colectiva. That is the first fact-checking project, as you say, especially focused on the topic of public health, which has defined a system in place for collaboration between journalists, science experts, and citizen contributors. This is because when we designed the project, one of the biggest problems we identify is that the fact checks and explainers in a specific topic or science topic or medicine topics have few reliable sources for journalists in Latin America. And this was a challenge, the first one, to train a team to design and to join the Lupa Colectiva project for the stage to start a beta stage. The next slide, please. We have designed, this is how it looks the beta stage, because we have designed a system of collaboration. We have a partner, a foundation that is Epistemonical Foundation, is a sign organization that has one of the largest repositories in English and Spanish related to health. And they have more than 100,000 systematic reviews. And this is very important for our work because as our partner, we have also designed for the coronavirus crisis like a chapter to have all the information free for all journalists that are fact-checking topics or therapies, many things that people and journalists are concerning about the crisis of coronavirus. But in this project, we in the beta stage, we have this system. The topics we are verifying will be published, and this dashboard will appear at the end of July in our website. The second stage is that the community of science, because we are working now like in a backstage, working since March, because they are helping us to produce our explainers at our section Comprueba, that is the fact-checking section at Salud con Lupa. And the third step is send us information. This is the challenge when we launch the beta dashboard online at the end of July, because we will receive information from citizen contributors. And when we refer citizen contributors, we refer to people who is concerned and wants to collaborate and is concerned to combat the misinformation on public health topics. And in this month, we confirmed that there is a community in many social networks that want to help journalists. There is not just people who are dispersing information or fakes. There are also people that are very concerned and want to contribute with journalists. And this is a system of collaboration. It's important because when we validate their contributions, we recognize what is the contribution. And this is a system to create collaborations, citizen contributors that join a community that recognize their contributions. We get recognition. And what is the form to get recognition? When we publish our explainers or our fact checks, we say who collaborate, and we also give them like stars or like a status that they are part of a project who is working to combat misinformation in this moment. Of course, at the beginning, when we create the project, we didn't imagine that we also focus on the coronavirus. But in this time, it's very important to focus on this. And the next month, we will open other chapters of topics that we are verifying. But now most of the people is worried about it. And we have another challenge because Epistemonical Foundation and every community or every scientific community don't have all the answers for coronavirus. And we have to explain people to be empathetic with people, but also to learn with them, with our users, our audience, that now we have a lot of information that is not confirmed. We have to contribute with the explainers. And this is, as you see, most of our explainers say some nice questions that you have about the vaccine or more about the lungs, because how we know 5 months after the coronavirus appeared in our work, or these kind of contributions of epistemonicals when Trump in March talk about the hydroxychloroquine and there is no evidence. And we had a systematic review with the Epistemonical Foundation to say there is no, and we did in 2 days, because we review all the systematic reviews or papers or scientific papers that appear in English at the moment. And the other way is to write questions that people is doing in social networks, and they want that we have an answer. We have a lot of level of uncertainty of the sources, but this is part also of the experience. Well, if you want to know about more the information we produce, I share with you all the ways you can do in social networks and also in our website. Well, I am ready to answer many things because I think it's a big project with a lot of questions.
It's a wonderful project, and we are just excited to have you here. My first question, I mean, you're really trying to address health literacy in Latin America. What are the primary obstacles that you're finding in this work that you're trying to overcome?
Yeah, the first, we think that is to collaborate, to do critical thinking on people about public health topics, because many people in our culture believe in grandma cures. Our cultures also have some ways not go to the doctor, just to believe in some um, topics that are not scientific, and sometimes in health it's literal that your decision is you can do a difference between the life of the death if you take a decision. Of course, many of the examples are now. Many people in my country and in Latin America believe that if you take a tea, that it's magic, something like this, you will be safe from coronavirus. No? We have to create a critical thinking to identify reliable sources. And this is like create a culture, a community that have changed the ship.
Yeah, okay, great. So collaboration with citizen contributors is an important part of your project. How do you find and train them?
Yeah, we are in the beta stage. When we launch the dashboard online in the website, Salud con Lupa website, we will have a campaign. But also we have a pilot that is, like I explained, in a backstage, that people who is concerned about many topics. And the crisis also is a big opportunity, because many people appear that we didn't know they have knowledge and they wanted to contribute. Health professionals and also citizens who have at the moment information and want to contribute with us. That's we say people who love evidence, people who wants to contribute with us, because it's not easy to find this kind of information. That's why we create a system that recognize these people. They have to appear, and journalists have to recognize the community, the audience that is helping us in this moment.
No, that's great. Fabiola, thank you very much for your time. We look forward to having some questions from the audience for you later on.
Thank you.
Great. So next we have Atakan Foça. He's founder of Teyit, an independent fact-checking organization in Turkey, which will spread its fact checks online using public transportation screens in 4 cities in Turkey through Mind the Gap. You're one step away from the truth. Welcome, Atakan.
Hello, Michael. Hello, everyone. Good to be here. So now let's start about the project. We have launched the Teyit in 2016. From the first day of our organization, we have been prioritized the strategy to reach every echo chamber as far as we can. A couple of years after our launch, we realized that publishing online isn't sufficient itself to do that. Even our reach on the web and social platforms is quite high. Filter bubbles cause barriers between us and communities because of the algorithms on search engines and social media platforms. Some groups do not see our regular fact checks of viral hoaxes. Also, still, we are not able to interfere with closed messaging apps. To overcome this, we decided to produce and display short videos on public transport in Istanbul, Turkey's largest city. The public transportation of Istanbul was used by 4 million people daily basis before COVID-19. This made our fact checks accessible to people from a range of different backgrounds, particularly the older generation. Public transportation is free for use for people over 65 in Turkey. That's why a lot of elderly people actively use public transportation. We wanted to take this advantage and introduce them with our fact checks and equip them with digital literacy skills. Taking fact-checking work to offline areas where the internet connection and distraction are limited helped us reach a more diverse audience. We would like to be sure that people are being exposed to the truth wherever they go. So since November 2019, videos debunking false claims have been shown 3 days a week on the city's metro system, as well as ferries and bus services in Istanbul. Fact checks on viral hoaxes that have a malicious effect on people's lives, economic systems, and democratic processes are screened. During the pandemic, we have sent the claims related to coronavirus only the screens. You are watching one of the examples. After every fact-checked claim, we have shown a media literacy tip or a thought process to the passengers related to the specific claim. We also use emojis and stickers to attract the attention of people in public transportation. After COVID-19, we had to hold our plans to expand our project through other major cities for a while. Public transportation is not a popular place after all, as you all know. But nowadays, the impact of the pandemic is decreasing and people began to use vehicles again. We are looking into how effective this strategy has been and how we can expand the project into other cities. So another objective is to establish a sustainable sponsorship model for short videos on the public transportation. At the end of the day, the companies which run those screens are for profit and they can hold their breath until more revenue can be generated from the time space we kept. We are working on a sponsorship company to find true sponsors for the sake of the future of our videos for now.
Great, Atakan, thank you very much. This is very exciting. I used to be transportation editor at the Washington Post, so this hits me right close to my heart. The first question I have, you mentioned that the coronavirus has offered an opportunity to put some information about that on the screens. But how do you decide in normal times which fact checks to feature on the screens?
Yeah, actually, we prioritize urban legends and hot misinformation. After COVID-19, we prioritize only coronavirus misinformation and conspiracy theories. But in normal times, actually, as publishers, we should care about the nature of mediums. We should adjust the tone of the content for every medium we publish in. So we keep the needs of the audience and the medium in our minds. Fact checks actually are the hook in this medium because the real impact lays in the media literacy tips. We put the claims which can get the attention of passengers and expose them with tips they can use on the internet.
Great, this is awesome. So how often do you change the fact checks? Does it vary according to what you're putting on the screen or what's going on in the world or something else?
We are sending our videos to company at the beginning of the month. Now we publish 3 videos in a week in Istanbul. but our plan is expanding to 7 videos in a week in 4 cities.
Okay. So you mentioned that you had initial plans to expand to different cities, but of course, coronavirus hit transportation hard, but you're seeing that come back. Do you think that you will resume your plans to expand to other cities, and how ambitious do you want to be?
Yeah, I think so. Nowadays, we are trying to figure out how we can meet with the authorities of the companies to talk about the video plans of us. But after reaching 4 cities, 4 major cities, with this grant of Facebook and IFCN, we don't plan to expand the program other cities, because we should measure our impact before expanding the project to other cities. We should see real impact if it is successful or not.
Okay. How did you land on the decision to broadcast 3 days a week? And do you think, I mean, would more days a week be effective, or is 3 adequate?
Actually, we have dealt with company for free of charge before the grants came up. And they have limited spaces for the non-for-profit companies to publish their videos or their advertisement. So actually, Teyit was a good and reputable position in the ecosystem. And normally, this kind of companies are for profit, and they don't prioritize the organizations like us if you don't have enough budget to publish your videos. But we were in good position. They trusted our content, because we proved that we are non-partial. Our content is high qualified. So we dealt with them for only 3 days in a week. But after this grant, we will speed up our process to find sponsorship, to pay them, and we are trying to reach more people during all the week.
Okay. One more question for you. Do your fact checks all run about the same length, or do they vary in lengths? How do you decide what the appropriate time is for the fact check that's going to display on the screens, or is it just standard for all of them?
Michael, again, it's about the decision of the company, because they have limited spaces to put our videos on there, but we can put our videos which are only 1 minute long. So this is really challenging for us, because putting all the information, all the debunking in just 1 minute is really hard. But also, it's a very informative process for our content producing, because we are learning a lot of things to make our fact checks shorter. So we will try to figure out how we can make these videos longer and make all the week.
Great. Atakan, thank you very much. Please stick around. We'll have some audience questions for you at the end.
Thank you.
Great. So next up, we have Carlo Canepa. He's a fact checker for Pagella Politica in the Milan area of Italy, which is seeking to engage other fact checkers around the world and reach a larger audience. Welcome, Carlo.
Hi all, and thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here with you. Yes, I'm a fact checker. I work for Pagella Politica, which is the only website in Italy that fact checked Italian politicians' declarations. And in April 2020, Pagella Politica has launched a new website, Facta, which is focused more on debunking. And yes, our project is for the next 10 months. It started in April, and we are trying to find a way to help all fact checkers around the world in order to reach more audience and create a quality relationship with the audience. As you know, every day we wake up as fact checkers and debunkers, and one of our problems is to write the fact checks and spread the fact checks and reach more people around our country, around the world. So in the first phase of our project, we are in the middle of the first phase. We are trying to map what all the fact-checking organizations around the world are doing in order to reach more audience every day. So with my colleague Laura Loguercio, we have mapped all over 80 EFCN principal signatories, and we are trying to understand for all these signatories if there is a specific strategy in order to reach more audience and engage the readers. So we have created a Google form with some answers, and in the next weeks we are sending these answers to our colleagues around the world in order to understand what other fact checkers around the world are doing in this topic. In the second phase of our project, which will start in the fall 2020, we're trying to experiment some of our findings in order to understand what works and what doesn't work. And in the third phase of our experiment, in the spring of 2021, we are wrapping up all our findings in a website like Better News. I don't know if you know this website, in order to bring to other fact checkers what we have found, and probably we will write a sort of handbook, like the verification handbook. Our dream is to write an handbook, like an engagement handbook, where we can teach to and spread to the other fact checker what we can do in order to reach more audience with quality content.
Great, thank you very much. This is a thrilling project. And your goal is to help fact checkers reach a larger audience through the fact-checking engagement project. What are the metrics that you're using to gauge success? I mean, how do you know that this is actually working?
It's a very good question. As you always know, metric is a hot topic in journalism, because we want to use traditional metrics, so page views and how many time our readers spend in our page. So we think that also for the analytics website, but also for social media, we are using CrowdTangle in order to understand which metrics are best. But we also want to understand from others fact-checking organization which metrics they think are best in order to value their strategy in order to reach more audience. So we are trying to understand better this topic. I think that we will have a clear idea after the first phase. So when we will recap all the answer for the other fact checks around the world, maybe we will have a clear idea on which metrics we need to focus on. But traditional metrics, we want to use them, and if we could think about an innovative metrics in order to evaluate engagement, we will be very happy.
Oh, great. So what areas of the world are you most focused on? Are there some continents or countries that you want to target first?
No, but in the first phase we have mapped, as I said, all the fact-checking organizations around the world, and we have found that specific content and specific countries, maybe there are different channels or formats that work better than others. So no, we don't focus on specific content and specific countries, but I think, and we'll see in the next months, I think that engagement, is a vague term, but I think that engagement could see from different point of view in different countries and on different topics. Coronavirus crisis has hit us and is hit the community fact checking all around the world. So engagement is moving on a binary. For example, fake news on social media or false declaration politics about COVID. I hope that in the next months, other topics will come on the stage. So let's see how this change the context all around the world and in the specific content or countries.
Okay. One more question for you right now. So, I mean, at the heart of your project is really collaboration. It's baked into what you're doing. What do you see as the key ingredients for building a collaborative of this sort? I mean, it seems really complicated.
Yes, for example, as I said, we will send these questions to fact-checking organization in order to understand which strategies they are using in order to engage more their audience. And as you can think, maybe some fact-checking organization wouldn't want to give us all the information. And this Google form will be anonymous, so this is not a problem. From another point of view, for my experience, I'm a fact checker since 2018, and I've always have a tremendous, fantastic relationship with other fact checking organizations around the world, and I hope and I'm certain that we could help each other very well, because the result of our project would be something that could be used all around the world and for all the fact checkers, not only for Pagella Politica. So I hope that collaboration will not be a problem, but a solution in order to have results.
That's great. Carlo, thank you very much for your presentation. Stick around, we'll have some questions for you at the end. Great. So next up, we have Jovana Prešić. She's project coordinator for Istinomer, a fact-checking initiative out of the Center for Research, Transparency, and Accountability in Belgrade, Serbia. Their project will create a Fact Check Me extension for web browsers. Welcome, Jovana.
Hi, Michael. Thank you for having me. So first of all, I would like to use this opportunity to also thank to the IFCN for the support, not just within this grant, but for everything they're doing to support the fact-checking community. So as Michael said, I'm Jovana. In the next few minutes, on behalf of the Istinomer team, I will present Proveri me in English Fact Check Me project that is granted within this initiative. So, as some of you know, Istinomer is the oldest fact-checking media outlet in the region of the Western Balkans. And for the last 10 years, Istinomer team has been dedicated to the assessment of politicians and public officials' accountability based on what they are saying and promising. So within this project, Istinomer team of developers at the moment is upgrading beta version of extension for web browsers. 3 of them, Google Chrome, Safari, and Mozilla Firefox, and which will enable our users of the extension while reading the news at more than 5, probably 7 most read online media outlets in Serbia to have visually marked public officials and politicians' claims that Istinomer team has already fact-checked. These claims will be visually marked on the websites according to the Istinomer ratings as true or false, and it is important that it will be visible to all extension users. So besides of connecting the extension with news portals with the highest readership among online users in Serbia, as I already mentioned, our readers will be enabled to communicate directly with our team of journalists in this additional way, beside of our usual way of communicating with the readers through social media, emails, the contact form, and other. So through the Fact Check Me extension, as I said, it can be downloaded from 3 web browsers. Istinomer readers will be enabled to directly send information or claims that they found in media portals and nominate them for fact-checking by the Istinomer team. So after journalists of Istinomer fact-check that claim, users will receive a notification that their application has been verified, and they will be provided with the link so they can read the full analysis that it is published, fact-check that is published on Istinomer website. So also at the moment that the fact-check statement become marked, So at that moment, fact-check statement will become marked with a different color, and Istinomer rating will be visible. So the all extension users will see that. So through direct communication and interaction with fact checkers, users of the extensions will be provided with an effective mechanism not only to engage, but to learn and educate themselves on how to distinguish false news or false statements and disinformation from credible facts. That is also really important for Istinomer work, because it will enable ongoing assessment of accountability performance of politicians and public officials in relation to their public statements, which is a focus of our work for 10 years now. So as I said, at the moment our team of the developers is programming the backend of the extension, and according to the project timeline, in September of this year we will have official launching, and following by intense promotional campaign with the main goal to motivate Serbian audience to engage in this process, to download the extension to send us fact check for fact check, send us a statement and claims for fact checking. So this is the core of this project, but we will use this opportunity to add more functionalities within the extension, such as providing users with the opportunity to get the most popular fact checks produced by Istinomer team on a weekly level, or to have the list of their submissions through the extension and similar. So that would be it. But in case there are interested fact checkers or fact checking organizations, we would be happy to share the knowledge we gained in the last months, to share the code, and our developers will be available for any questions in that regard.
Great, Jovana. Thank you very much for sharing. How exciting. I guess just sort of following up on one of the last things you said, so is the code readily accessible on GitHub or something, or do people actually need to ask for it?
Part of the code, it's available to see on GitHub, but I think that we could provide with more information anyone who is interested in. I would have to ask for details, our colleagues, but it is. Okay. I know that the most part of it is available there.
Great. Okay. One of the things that's very appealing about your project is that you're connecting users and fact checkers directly. What do you see as the benefits for each of those groups, for the users and for the fact checkers?
Well, it allows fact checkers in our team to collect user inputs, opinions, as well as it will serve as feedback, just enabling us to most adequately address and respond to the interests and the needs of our user community. So this actually raises the potential for the broader reach and impact of our fact checks. So, and for the user perspective, I believe that this project brings a unique opportunity for all interested users to approach fact checkers directly and to actually act as co-creators of our content.
Oh, that's great. So who do you see as the users? What's the profile? Are these ordinary members of the public, or what is the persona that you're building for?
Well, I believe that our users will be active citizens who insist on politicians and public officials' accountability, and those ones who are not just the consumers of the content, but they tend to read the facts and ask for facts and credible information. So, for example, according to the research it is audit of political engagement in Serbia that was produced by organization that Istinomer is part of. Actually, around 40% of Serbian citizens participated at least one initiative, including signing petitions, discussing policy, and similar things. So I believe that citizens from that group of active citizens who are willing to engage will be users of this extension as well. No,
that's great. So there's so many different dimensions to this. What do you see as the biggest obstacle? You've got technical challenges, you've got user challenges, you've got a feedback loop going on. What do you think is going to be the biggest obstacle for you?
Well, one of the obstacles that is technical would be the fact that during the pandemic of coronavirus, we noticed that our readers are we have increased number of readers who are reading Istinomer fact checks from their mobile phones, and this extension works on web browsers. So at the moment we are trying to find the best way to deal with that challenge, and to make available to readers from mobile phones to use the extension.
Oh, wow, how exciting. One last question for you. I mean, so one of the important parts of your project is going to be the promo campaign to get people informed about this and to get your users interested. Have you given, or are there any particular venues or methodologies that you're thinking about pursuing, one more than other, that might help you tap into the people you need to find?
Well, regarding the promotional campaign, we are thinking of probably filming some tutorials and just targeting our fans and readers that we have in Serbia. So Istinomer have pretty big Facebook community and Twitter as well. So we will target that part of the audience.
Oh, it's exciting to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stick around. We'll have some questions for you at the end. Great. So next up, we have Venu Arora. She's director of the Ideosync Media Combined in India, which seeks to build a community of radio reporters as fact-checkers across the diverse landscape of language and dialects that are part of her country. Welcome, Venu.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much. It's a real privilege to be here at this conference. I was hoping to meet everyone in person, of course, but this is a fantastic opportunity for us to contribute to this very important and much needed work of fact-checking, particularly at this incredibly dystopic time that we all find ourselves in. So as Michael said, my name is Venu and I live and work in India. Our organization, Ideosync Media Combined, is a communication for social change organization. And our approach is built on principles of equality and social justice. Our long-standing work with community radio in India, and indeed in South Asia, is framed by our understanding of communication, media, and technology as a human right. I just want to spend a little time to help everyone understand the context in which we work. India is seen as a giant as far as digital and mobile markets are concerned, but the country also has vast gaping tracts of digital darkness. Data about the digital transition that the country is making could be misleading because the reality is that there are many Indias. There is a rural and an urban India, and in the urban India, there are urban slums, and in the urban slums, there are women who have no access to the mobile or the internet. In most of these homes, there is a single shared mobile phone with very slow 2G connection. Also, there is a wide gap between the north and the south of India, and indeed the northeast of India. So essentially, digital India is not one homogeneous India at all. Therefore, fact-checking for this digital India cannot be done without understanding these complexities. Some of the results coming out of the Economist Digital Inclusiveness Studies for India reflect this reality, both in terms of the availability of internet to people as well as the relevance of the available content. Another important aspect of this context is diversity, both in terms of culture as well as in terms of the language. We have over 15,000 mother tongues apart from the 22 official languages in India. This impacts the kinds of information that are in circulation in different parts of the country and what information is valued over another, as well as how it is shared, online, offline, through phone calls, small face-to-face networks. But the silver lining for us in the fact-checking network is that radio is still very relevant and is the second most widely used medium after TV and beats social media and the internet. We have over 290 community radio stations that are independent and are run by civil society and educational institutions and are broadcasting in local languages and dialects. Of these stations, over 150 community radio stations are partners in our Ideosync community media munch network. This may be small given the size of the country, but the fact that there is no news on radio in India is also another story that we can have another talk at another time about. But for us at Ideosync, innovating with radio has been a key to reaching and engaging the most marginalized audiences. Over the last 3 months during the pandemic, our community radio partners have been reaching out to us with viral messages that have been circulating in their areas, and we have been supporting them with fact checks. Our dipstick research with over 68 partners has shown that over 50% of the radio stations saw themselves as primary sources of verified and reliable information for their communities. The research is also showing us that what we had already suspected, actually, that communities are not yet media literate and they find it quite hard to distinguish between what is fake and what is fact. Our work with community radio actually goes back to before the community radio policy in India had come about in the early 2000s. And we have been a part of the advocacy network that helped push for the community radio policy. Our training and capacity building work with community radio, apart from building the skills for content production and broadcasting, includes programs on the role of media in a democracy, public interest reporting, building investigative skills and skills to respond during disasters, and many other such relevant training and capacity building programs. And thanks to this support from the innovative initiative, we will be formalizing our fact-checking support to the community radio stations in India through a fact-check service, which we will be undertaking together with our India partner Factly. But we also hope that we will be able to call upon other IFCN certified partners in India to contribute and support this work. We will also be rolling out an oral media literacy and information curriculum through the radio stations. And along with this, we will train up a large cohort of community radio reporters as fact checkers so that this initiative can be sustained beyond the available grant funds that we have as part of the innovation grant. So that's all from me for now, and happy to answer any questions you may have, Michael.
No, this is great. Your project is such a wonderful example of doing work that is tailored to the realities of the community. But it's so complex. You talk about there being the 22 languages and 15,000 mother tongues. How many people can you actually reach through community radio?
Yeah, so radio stations have varying reaches depending on the the density of the population in the areas that they broadcast. So these are local stations. So I think what we have to, at Ideosync, our philosophy has always been depth versus scale. I know the world looks at scale all the time, but we have found that our work has been much more meaningful when we are very, very grounded to reaching the last most marginalized audiences. So radio stations, and in India, the population density is really huge. So, a station may be covering 20 to 30 kilometers, but it's reaching maybe more than 5 lakh or, sometimes even 10 lakh population. So each radio station, depending on where it is situated, reaches, different population, depending on the density in that area.
Okay. So with so much diversity in the language, how big a role does translation play in your work, and how do you maintain the integrity of fact checks down the line?
Yeah, so good question, Michael. But I think, again, I'll just go back to the fact that there are dialects. So yes, translation is key, but, centralized translation will not truly respond to the needs the citizens we are trying to reach. So we have to work very closely with our community radio station partners to take the translation and then colloquialize it so that we can make that fact check meaningful to the local audience. So it is a lot of in-depth work. And it is different to doing a fact check and trying to put it out there for as many people to look at. It's about customizing that fact check to make it relevant to the person who's going to be listening to it.
Well, and I guess there is a feedback loop, right? Because you do a fact check, it gets translated and converted to the dialect, and you see whether or not it resonates. And then that provides you information for the next one, I would guess?
Absolutely. So we will be working very closely with our community radio partners to collate the feedback that they are receiving. And then we would be, monitoring and evaluating that feedback to see how to respond better. And radio stations will have a call-in show, so people will call in live. So it's a continuous loop, and we hope to, kind of develop it like a practice. Like a regular broadcast practice for our community radio partners. And so to kind of make fact check part of regular broadcast practice for community radios in India.
Great. So, you talked about the need for media and information literacy. What are the primary obstacles, I guess language would be one of them, for creating this curriculum, and how do you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, right. That's a big challenge. I think one of the things to understand is that we don't even have the language for fact checking beyond truth and lies in the localized languages, right? So there is not yet a language to distinguish between misinformation and disinformation and misleading claim and lack of context, or all the nuances that we've kind of taken for granted in the fact check network and in our work otherwise. And we need to, as part of our media literacy work, find a way to create words that will, kind of come close to the meanings that we have otherwise we understand in English, for example. I mean, in many of these languages, there is no word to distinguish these nuances. So that's going to be the very first part of the work we do, which I think is very, very innovative. It's not been done at all. And for us to be able to do that work as part of our media literacy, aspect of the project will be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that.
No, that is going to be just wonderful. So, you touched on the pandemic. What new challenges has it created? It's creating all kinds of new problems and obstacles for people who are doing work around misinformation and fact checking. What are you finding as you, delve more into this space? What is coronavirus, what additional problems is it causing?
Yeah, so I think in our context, inaccurate information comes after people are able to fulfill their basic needs. So livelihoods currently are the biggest challenge. Access to health facilities is a big challenge. So while we know that all of this, both livelihood and access to health is linked to accurate information, the citizen is not necessarily, prioritizing this as much as we think that they need to. So I think enabling our audiences to keep on top of their priority list, being well informed, and therefore seek out our community radio broadcasts so that they can keep themselves informed. I think that'll be a new challenge, because Corona has kind of taken the country back in terms of its economic progress and many other, really ground realities that people in the country are now having to deal with.
Yeah. So community radio is something that we see in several countries that has the potential to really address this need. I'm wondering if you've had any discussions with other countries or other people in other areas. I think about some of the places on the African continent, for example, that could also benefit, that deal with some of the same language issues that you're facing. Has that been part of the practice that's evolving for you?
Absolutely. I mean, we are networked with, we know partners working in Africa and in Europe, and I mean, our work in community radio has now been over more than a decade. So we in Australia, in many places. So I think what we are doing in India would be a pilot in many ways to then be taken to other continents and other places. Africa would be fantastic, and I know the networks are very strong there. And we do hope to actually, perhaps also, it's a good idea to inform them as we do our work, so that when this pilot ends, they can kind of take off from there, perhaps, and we could work together.
No, that's absolutely great. Thank you very much. Please stick around. We'll have a few more questions for you here at the end, but this is a very exciting project, and it's wonderful to hear about what you're doing. So our last project, we have a presentation from Health Analytics Asia. Nabeela Khan Inayata is Deputy Editor for Health Analytics Asia, and with the grant, they've launched FirstCheck, a website focused on fact-checking medical and misinformation. Nabeela, as I said, has sent us her presentation. Let's learn more about FirstCheck.
Hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm Nabeela, Deputy Editor at Health Analytics Asia, and I lead a fact-checking initiative called FirstCheck. It is specifically aimed at fighting medical misinformation. It is owned and run by Health Analytics Asia, which is a media digital company and focuses on reporting public health issues through data-driven storytelling. I'll be talking more about it and our initiative FirstCheck in the later half of this session. Thank you very much. Hello again. I'll be talking about our project FirstCheck and how it is unique both in its format and approach. Moving on to my first slide. FirstCheck is an initiative which is aimed specifically to fighting medical misinformation. It is owned and run by Health Analytics Asia, which reports on public health issues. So it was moving to the next slide. It was back in 2015 when we had launched Health Analytics and we were reporting on public health issues. We realized that there was a huge communication gap between doctors and journalists. This dearth of communication eventually gives rise to misunderstandings, and that's when we felt that there's a need to bring these two communities together and provide them a platform where they can talk to each other with an ease. To address this issue, we started organizing boot camps in different Indian states and some parts of Asia. Today, we have more than 30 doctors from different Asian countries. If you look at the map, you can see how widespread our network is. This was an open call. A number of doctors, mental health experts, epidemiologists, virologists applied for this program. So what have we done to build this robust network? As I mentioned, we started with boot camps, and we have so far trained 3,000 plus doctors and journalists. These boot camps definitely provided them an opportunity to come together and communicate with each other, but it laid a lot of groundwork for us to understand how we can join hands with these doctors and debunk medical misinformation together. But now the challenge was how to build a closer network with doctors and how to remain in constant touch with them. So we started our WhatsApp group, and today this group has 30 doctors from 13 Asian countries. And it is a vibrant discussion group which is emerging to be a repository of knowledge and information. Also, a big thanks to IFCN's prestigious grant that we have been able to build upon this idea and now have launched a dedicated website which is dedicated to fact-checking medical misinformation. I'll just take you to the website. This website has debunked close to 100 stories on medical misinformation so far. It also encourages our fact checkers to voice their opinion and write expert columns. So if you click on this section called First Take, you can read the columns by our fact checkers. Anyone from public health background, any doctor who has joined us during this session, they can click on the top right corner of the website and click on the become a fact checker, and it will take you to a Google form which you can fill in and submit. Going back to the presentation, I'll just share with you our learnings, our key takeaways. The idea behind this entire initiative is collaboration, and that's one of the biggest lessons. Pool your resources, collaborate with different domain experts, and if possible across borders, because these experts gives deep insights and a different nuance to our storytelling and fact checking. Try and build closer networks with people. Social media is a great tool, but Messaging apps are emerging to be powerful tools to build robust networks, and they immensely help in fact checking and storytelling. Lastly, empower your networks, encourage them to explore, write, because as journalists we can write and communicate well, but domain experts bring in a different understanding which can help you in reporting well. Thank you very much. Keep reading us on Health Analytics Asia, ha-asia.com, firstcheck.in, and you can also follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is Health Asia. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much to Nabeela for sending us her presentation. I do see that we already have some audience questions for her project, and all of the participants who registered for the public and private tracks of Global Fact 7 will be sent Nabeela's answers soon. Now, as we are nearing the end of our session, we'd like to move into Q&A for all of the panelists we have heard from today. The first question is from Liesl from Africa Check. From Alan Leonard. Do you have a proactive relationship with Kenya and other statistics agencies, or just you retrieving their bulletins? And then there's a follow-up.
Thank you for the question, Alan. Thank you, Michael. So I would say we definitely are working on relationships with the statistic agencies in all the countries where we are active. We don't just retrieve data when we have questions for clarity, etc. We liaise with these agencies so that we don't just copy paste, but we can interpret the data, and especially if we think of reader questions. And for example, I'm more familiar with direct interaction with the South African agency, but they have helped us answer some of our readers' technical questions on the unemployment rate, for example. So I would say broadly, yes, and Alan, I could get you more specific details on Kenya.
So his follow-up was, have you influenced how, I guess, any of the countries present their stats or their data?
That's a good question. Factual and being a good fact checker, I will check with my colleagues in Kenya on that, Michael.
Great. Thank you very much, Liesl. Our next question is from Rajnil Kamath to Atakan and his project in the Turkish transportation system. So Atakan, I think you touched on this in your presentation, but perhaps we need a little clarity. Did the transportation authorities charge for shoring your fact checks, or was it purely pro bono?
No, they don't charge. This is an agreement which is pro bono. But as I said, we should find, or the company should find a sponsor to maintain our partnership, and we are seeking out a good sponsorship model for expanding this program to other major cities.
So I guess a follow-up to that would be, is this something that more philanthropy or foundations might be interested in sponsoring, or is it really just about some other type of sponsorship?
I mean, it can be philanthropic, but we should track how we can get attention of the private companies or biggest NGOs for sponsorship. What I meant while I'm saying sponsorship model, the sponsorships should not interfere our content, or it should be more in the middle while we are working with them. So we were working with a sponsorship company, but after COVID-19, I guess they cannot keep our partnership because sponsors are stepping back after COVID-19. They are cutting the budgets. So we will. I think we will hire a digital marketing specialist to make a folder for the sponsors to reach them.
Great, thank you very much. Our next question is for Fabiola. It's from Tanu Mitra, and the question is, how do you sustain and expand the community of scientists, especially when topics to be verified can change? For example, health versus climate change would require different experts and scientists.
Yeah, well, We have the first partner, that is science organization, but we also plan to create partnerships with universities, medicine faculties, and other organizations, scientific organizations in Latin America, because this is not focused in one country, this is focused in Latin America. Some of the universities, for example, it's a good opportunity. Many of the communication faculties in Latin America, Colombia and Chile especially, Javeriana University and Conception University Chile, were interested to open like course, communication, fact-checking on health topics. And they also have professional health in other faculties to join it. In that way, we think that we have this opportunity to create more ways of collaboration. But at the beginning, we think that we have to demonstrate the system of collaboration and what are the benefits for journalists, for the science of organization that most of the time have information, but they don't know how to distribute it, to communicate to the public, for the citizen contributors. But in the way of this question is, yeah, we planned to have partnership with universities. They are important in this project.
Great. Thank you very much. Let's see. Our next question is for Carlo. And it says, your project, Carlo, is the only one focused in the fact-checking community. What do you need from us, people in the fact-checking community, to make your project go faster?
So as I said in my previous presentations, in the next days, we will send to the members of IFCN signatories principals a Google form in order to answer some short questions about the strategy they are using in order to reach more readers with fact-checking content. So what we need from other fact-checkers is to answer those questions, suggest us ideas and things that we don't have thought about with our form, and in the next months, if we contact them, collaborate with us in order to make this project work in the best way.
Great. Thank you. And I'm sure the community will be, there'll be lots of back and forth, actually.
I'm sure so.
Yeah, absolutely. Our next question is for Jovana from Tanu Mitra. And the question is, extension-based methods work great for people who actively seek out for fact checks and verifications. What are your thoughts on reaching out to users who do not do so?
Thanks. So we are aware that that not 100% of our audience is really ready to engage in this process, but our focus is on that percent of the people who are really, as I mentioned in the presentation, who are active citizens, who are willing to engage, who are asking for facts and credible information. But we will try to broaden that the number of users with cooperation with our mainstream media partners, the televisions, media portals, etc., to reach those people. And also promotional campaign, we hope that it will be successful. We will launch quizzes, videos, similar things.
Oh, and maybe, like Atakan, you can do something on the transportation system as well.
Yes, it will. I thought about that during his presentation. It's a great idea. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Our next question is for Fabiola again. And the question is, did the pandemic help Lupa Collectiva proving its importance, or made it just another fact checker doing health fact checks?
Yeah, the pandemic proved that we need to create a method or a way to respond, to have an answer to explain better the uncertain topics in science, for example. This is one of the big challenge. As I explained very fast, now we are focused on explainers because science don't have the answer for all the questions we have. And as you know, the categorizes or the way we organize the fact checks are false, true, or not too uncertain. And now this kind of categories that don't work for everything, and we have to show people and try to learn with people, journalists and audience, that we need to learn how to consume information, help information to take decisions. Not everything is like categorized, but you have to have experience how to get information, and this is very important. And the way we think, we are empathetic. More of the time we say no, you don't know it, and you don't have to do it. Many people think that we want to change the way they live, the way they believe, and this is very like complicated in Latin America. And I imagine in other cultures also, but in this crisis, we demonstrate that also empathetic explainers, and to be very honest, to say this is what we know until now, and to explain people, you have to understand how the science how science works, and we need to wait and know it. This is a big challenge. Until now, we every day we select what will explain this week, because we have like 10 questions, and what will explain with this week works for people.
Yeah. So a follow-up, I guess, how do you deal with the different needs across Latin America? I mean, because the countries themselves are so diverse. Do you see your project working seamlessly, or how do you deal with the obstacles that might come up?
Oh, because we joined the Latam Chequea network, and most of the time, fact checkers in the network identify that the same fake or the same problem is happening at the same time, or maybe 1 week before or after in one country. And now we know what is the topic we have to explain better, no? And we collaborate with Chequeado, and Chequeado promote most of our explainers, because we use also graphics. Many of the participants mentioned that graphics were very important to explain complicated or complex topics. And in medicine, it was very useful explain people in this way. And we have graphic special explainers, as many big medias have this staff to do it. But as a project, we present this kind of information also in graphics, the explainers in graphics and videos.
Visual communication is extremely important.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Fabiola. We have another question for Atakan about his project again. So Atakan, how do you measure the impact of fact checks that are read on public transportation? How do you even know people see it? I guess, so what are your metrics, and how are you gauging success?
Yeah, it is the hardest thing to understand the impact. Actually, it's really challenging, but we have some methods to understand which kind of metrics we should collect. For example, we define measurable impacts of our activities every year in our theory of change, and we are trying to establish some survey method or face-to-face group calls to reach our audience to understand our impact. So we are now working with an independent impact measurement analyst. So we are now designing a survey for transportation users, passengers. We will go to metro stops or bus stops, ferry stops to talk with people to collect some data. But beyond the data, we should understand the impact with anecdotal things. So yeah, it's really challenging, and I am open. I'm open every help from fact checkers about reaching the impact data.
Great, thank you very much. Our next question from Ramakrishnan Nagarajan is for Carlo. And the question is, we have an introduction here. Fact checkers in India are often accused of a political motive for debunking certain kinds of misinformation or false information. So how does Pagella Politica deal with that kind of dismissive response to their work, that there might be political motives behind what you're debunking?
It's a very interesting question. I can answer this question from the political point of view, because in Pagella Politica I write political fact-checking, quindi, and then sometimes politicians and people attack Pagella Politica and said that we have politics motives in order to fact check some politicians and not other politicians. How we answer to these critics? Sometimes we try to engage with the politicians or with our readers. Sometimes we decide that we can't follow this conversation because we notice that we can reach an agreement. We let our article, our methodology, which is very transparent on our website, to talk for us. And so we know it's a risk that we face every day in our work, but every time we make an error, we recognize our error. We have a page where we correct our fact checking. So it's we decide case by case. So, and it's the same for Facta, the Pagella Political Debunking website. We are trying to engage sometimes with our critics, but sometimes we decide that it's not the case. So it's the answer.
Great. Thank you very much, Carlo. Transparency is so important to all the work that all of us do. And thank you for emphasizing that in your answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that concludes this portion of our project. Congratulations again to our 7 project winners. Their work will help make information ecosystems around the world better. Thanks to the Facebook Journalism Project and IFCN at the Poynter Institute for celebrating this work. And thanks to each of you who joined us for this panel. We look forward to seeing the progress everyone makes in the months ahead. Let's go back to Chris.
Hey, Michael, thanks very, very much for this panel. The Q&A was wonderful. Thanks for the presentations, fact checkers friends from around the world, and congratulations again for getting the grant from the Fact Checking Innovation Initiative Round 1. I'm just gonna say again that Round 2 is opened. You can log in to poynter.org and see all the requirements and all the information that you need. You have until July 24 to apply. And now we have $450,000, and you can request up to $100,000 just to develop your next great idea for the fact-checking community and for your own organization. So again, I want to put the sad face on and tell you that the public track at this global fact is right now over. I want to thank every one of you that has been around. It's been a wonderful week. We started on Monday. It's already Friday, midday. And well, it's been a great pleasure. I'm here at the IFCN, the Poynter Institute, hosted this wonderful virtual edition, and we really hope it's the last one. We really hope that you are all safe and healthy. Of course, we would love that we had met at Oslo, but we will do that next year. I personally want to thank the IFCN team, Baybars, Harrison, and Ferdy, who worked a lot. I want to also thank all the technicians that are behind the cameras, Stage 10 that organized all the virtual stage that we have, and the board members of the IFCN and all the speakers that made this possible. And again, you know that everything that was seen here is now available on the IFCN's YouTube channel. And feel free to go over and review anything that you might think that's more interesting and needs to be reviewed. Please share our social media content. It's at the IFCN is available on Twitter, on Facebook, and Instagram. And of course, as I said, on YouTube. I want to thank our sponsors, and just to remember, we will be always here for you. The IFCN community keeps growing, and we see you next year. And Private Track is on next week, Monday and Tuesday, for fact checkers. Bye-bye.